All right, let's see. May the 2nd on the Big Douglas Show. Big Swaggy is with us again on Monday. Robert Big Pooh, always on a Monday. And today, to kind of give us a look back on the draft, Zach Selby. Zach, how are you?
I am very tired. For the past 3 days, it has been just nonstop operating, which is about 3 hours of sleep each night. But I mean, hey, we got 8 new players now, and it's really exciting. I mean, these guys are, I wouldn't say they're not necessarily the big name guys, but I think they're really solid players that are going to add a lot of value to this Washington roster.
Now, this is your third or fourth year draft with the team.
So this is my third draft. It'll be my fourth season in September.
Okay. People always ask me when I say, yeah, Zach's coming on. He covers the Commanders. And they're like, oh, yeah, for who? And I'm like, the Commanders. And then they're like, no, I got that. But who do you work with? The Commanders. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why we love having you on, because you always bring us great insight. So they moved back from 11 to 16, went from 6 picks to 8. Which is what they said they wanted all along. Is interesting. They kind of told us what they wanted to do and hoped to do. Yeah. They achieved it. They're really high on the wide receiver, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They absolutely are. I mean, this guy's, according to Daniel Jeremiah, has the best hands in the draft. If you just think about that statement for a second, this is a really, really solid, really good receiver class between Olave, Garrett Wilson, Drake London. I mean, a bunch of other guys. And I mean, Jahan Dotson has the best hands at all of them. I mean, a drop rate of just 3.5%. That's crazy. And he's been that guy for Penn State for quite a while now, and he has a good little bit of speed to him. He's got some really nice catchphrases, which I think is going to play really, really key with him in his rookie season. And I think yes, he's not exactly the big receiver that some people thought that they would necessarily need, but I think he does complement Terry really well. For one, he's almost like a Terry clone because he's a quiet kid, has a really soft demeanor, but I wouldn't say he's shy, but he's just a quiet guy. I think he has a lot of confidence in what he can do, and I mean he's already shown that he can go about his business as a professional. It's already been not even 96 hours since he's been drafted. So I'm excited about him. Another team is excited about him. I think once everybody comes back healthy, because I think that's the expectation, right? Is that everybody's going to come back healthy between Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissic going to come back. And you add Terry to that, you add De'Ami Brown to that. You got a potentially really good group of weapons out there that could give Carson with a lot of toys to play with.
This the guy Swaggy was yelling for last Monday. He
I told you, man.
He's yelling for Dotson.
You get to a Penn Stater, man, you'll be okay. I mean, I love watching them play. Obviously, I went to Penn State, so I always follow my guys at Penn State. So when I seen that we drafted him, I didn't think that we would draft him that high because I think a lot of the draft boards had him going either low 20s or early second round. So when I saw that we got him early in the first round, I was definitely happy because I'm always happy when we get a Penn State guy.
Well, you said, go ahead.
Like you said, I was kind of confused by the pick because even though he's a great player, it kind of seemed like we just picked another Terry again. And I was like, oh, God, we got the same receiver again. But, he's definitely lightning. You can put him all around the field. He can play outside, play inside, and he's has great route running abilities and being able to catch and take the top off defenses. That's exactly what we need in our offense. So I was very glad that we picked him. I love Penn State guys, and anytime we get somebody from Penn State, we're going to be a great team.
Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with having more than one Terry McLaurin on the roster.
Not at all.
That out there. And two, the second thing is I think some people were saying he thought that John was going to be picked a little bit lower down the list, but Mark Mayhew kind of had a backhand to that and said, "Look, nobody knows our needs and what we want better than us." So,
right.
Well, and also if he goes to 20 to the Packers, everybody was like, "Oh man, this is a home run hit." It's a great pick. He goes 4 picks earlier at 16, and some people will question the move. I don't think so. It was interesting. They must feel like the roster is a lot closer to winning right now because they kind of bucked the trend of the last 2 years, right? All these guys, at least the first 3 picks, ought to be able to play right away. So I think they went not so much as like mold and potential, but guys, first 3 guys are going to get action right away, including the running back. There's going to be snaps for him, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And if you look I mean, the belief is that those first 4 picks, they're going to be able to contribute right away. And I was doing some research on Percy Butler, and I mean, he stands out really, really nice. I think he only allowed like 1 or 2 touchdowns and like so many 100 snaps or something like that. Like it's really solid. And you've got Fedarian Mathis, who I think that was another pick people can kind of confused with. But if you look at it, it makes a lot of sense, right? Because you have Tim Settle gone, Ioannidis gone. That defensive tackle depth is, you need to address it, and he can crash the pocket like Ioannidis and Settle could do, and he's a pretty solid run stopper too. So that's something you can definitely add in there, to be a rotation in that group. And then you also have Brian Robinson, who I'm just about to push publish on a story about him. 5 things you need to know. Check it out on commanders.com. And I like him a lot, because he had 79 missed tackles in 2021, and that's 3 more than Derrick Henry had in a single season, and 8 more than Najee Harris had in a single season. That just shows you like how good this guy was.
And he didn't fumble. Not one fumble in college. Not last year.
Right. That's the key. That
is the key. So he brings a bruiser style to what the Commanders want out of their backfield. And if you remember, back when they had that 4-game winning streak, when they put themselves in position to win the NFC East and win out, what was that predicated on? Their running game. Their running game. They were top 10 in the league in rushing yards per game. And Gibson was going all over the place. McKissick was doing his thing out of the backfield. And now you bring a third guy into that who has a very distinctly different style to them, because both Gibson and McKissick are kind of like dual threat guys. They can do things out of the backfield. They can also hit you down the middle. But Brian Robinson, he's a thumper, like flat out. And he's big too, 6'2", 225 pounds. Has a similar size to Gibson, but he has a really big physicality to him. And I think they really want to have a guy that, like, similar to how, I had Mr. 3rd and 2 out there, Peyton Barber. That was my nickname for him, because whenever you needed 2 yards, he gets you those 2 yards. And I think that's what Brian Robinson brings to this offense.
I want to talk about once you talk about Percy Butler a little bit. I know some people online was a little upset. I think when they drafted Mathis that they didn't get I can't remember that safety name that was drafted right after him. But I saw Chris Sims had said Percy Butler was the best free safety in this draft, was the best purest free safety in this draft. And I know that's something Washington has really been, looking for is a free safety type that could patrol the back end of the defense. So and obviously he's a thumper. We saw him taking the heads off players in his highlight tape. Can you talk about Percy a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, he like you said, he does bring a certain level of physicality. I think they seem really high on him. They seem like he can contribute right away, and that gets you excited, right? Because whenever you go talk about that 4-game winning streak again, when they were on the defensive side of the ball, they were doing really well when they're using those 3 safety looks. When players like Tom Brady were so confused about like where the coverage was coming from, where the blitzes were coming from, and he can do that. I think and being called the best pure safety in the draft, like he takes that pretty seriously. If someone asked him about that after he was drafted, and he likes that comp a lot. He thinks that he doesn't take it lightly at all, considering how there were some pretty good safeties in this draft class. And I think another thing that you can add to him is, like, I know this is not something fans necessarily want to hear, but like when he's on special teams, he can be a really quality special teams guy. Mm-hmm. And you don't think about that. You don't think about those plays when you think of like adding an impact player, but that really matters a lot. Sometimes, like, you'd be amazed to see just how much value like players like that are really willing to be like a special teams star can really change your team for the better in a very positive way. So I think whether he's on defense, special teams, he's gonna bring a different kind of mentality to what the Commanders have been used to.
Absolutely. We lost the special teams captain this offseason, so
Hopefully he could be something like McCarty up in New England. He's played like 10 years, made all pro special teams every year. So hopefully he could come in and give us that type of productivity, be a good safety that we can rely on playing defense, but also be a special team standout. And guys don't understand, like, if you're good on special teams, your career could be 10 plus years. There's some guys who probably rarely ever play defense, but they're great on special teams, and they have a wonderful career in the league. So special teams are very important in the National Football League, especially for undrafted guys and even lower round draft picks. Everyone has to play special teams. So if that's his special ability, I hope he goes out there and gives a bunch of block kicks, make a bunch of tackles for loss, or tackles within the 10-yard line on punt. So if that's something that he can provide for our team, he's going to be great.
Zach, real quick, I know you're busy today, and we appreciate your time. Let's get you out of here on this. Do you expect a reunion with Collins? You had mentioned that 3 safety look. I've heard rumblings that maybe he'd be interested in coming back. And then Trey Turner today too, right?
Yeah, I mean, reportedly Trey Turner, he's someone that has a lot of experience with Ron Rivera, so he knows the culture. I think he would be a really strong fit for the offensive line. As far as Collins goes, I mean, I think that's something that they're going to have to determine probably after the OTAs, things like that. Because I mean, if they did want to sign Collins, I think he's still available, and he does bring a lot of the familiarity with the system. But I don't think they're necessarily in a big hurry to bring him in. I think they'll probably also they'll see how their current conglomerate of safeties really works out, and if they need to address it again, they'll do that. If it's Collins, yeah, but if it's not, there's some other veteran safeties out there that could possibly be an addition as well.
And tell us again when the article comes out.
Yeah, well, as soon as I get off here, it's going to publish. So pretty much like a couple minutes after that, I'm telling you, I'm grinding, man.
Yeah. Now, we appreciate your time, man, and thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Y'all take care.
Yeah, you too.
Have a good one.
All right. Chris, tell us a little bit about that second. We didn't get to talk about it much, but tell us about that second-round pick.
Oh, I love him. I love the defensive tackle pick, and obviously, like we said before, we definitely need some depth on our defensive line. Because anytime you have a good defensive line, it's normally you have good backups, because the guys who start can't play 80 snaps and be 100% all game long. So to have a guy like we picked, another Alabama guy, I love this, and hopefully he could be as good as Payne and Allen has been for us this year. But after watching his highlight tape, he kind of reminds me of myself a lot. He's a little bit taller. I think he's 6'4", 6'5". Mm-hmm. But he's one of those position versatile guys. He could line up in a 3 technique, he could line up in a 0, he could line up in a shade, and he could move him out to defensive end, and he could play 5 and be stout. But he kind of reminds me of myself in the sense of there's nowhere on a defensive line where he can't play. Whether it's a 4-3 or it's a 3-4, he has that position versatility as a defensive lineman. So you can line him up in the 3 and then bump him out to the 5. He has good pass rush technique. He's able to push the
box. 9 sacks in the SEC last year.
Yeah, and that's really impressive for an inside guy, especially when you see the caliber of talent that he's playing against other SEC schools. Those are some of the best players in the country. So when you're doing that against the best, hopefully it translates over to the NFL. But I like the pick. You can never have enough good defensive linemen, and he's one of those guys that could come in and learn from the guys in front of him. And then we just have to make a decision, because we have to pay a bunch of those guys on our defensive line. So if he comes in and shows that he could replace a Payne, then they're not going to be in a position to extend Payne. They may be able to train him, to trade him and maybe get some more draft picks for next year or something. But I like the pick. He's a solid guy. He can come in and play right away. And so it'll be interesting to see how he's doing OTAs and minicamp.
Who I'm curious, we didn't talk too much about it because I knew Zach had a limited amount of time, but that's the first round forever. We will now remember it. They could have had a bunch of people that we thought it was going to be. They decided to trade back and get more picks. So, it won't just be how well Jahan plays, it'll be how well Jahan plays plus the picks they got, the guys they got in return, which is I think the third, which was the third round pick.
The third round pick, and
the running back. So Robinson
fourth round pick
and Percy, I think. Let me pull up the list here.
Yeah, I think it's Percy.
But again, so I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, would you have preferred, Jamison Williams, if that's your wide receiver one that was still available, to, what we got here?
I mean, for Washington, I mean, Martin Mayhew said it, but they were looking for something specific, and I think once Garrett Wilson,
not to cut you off, it was
How
Brian Robinson and Howell.
Oh, Howell,
okay. They put with him. So,
yeah, but I think once Garrett, was it Wilson from Ohio State went off the board?
Mm-hmm.
I think once he went off the board, I think that's when the trade back was very, that's when it became a real thing for them. Obviously, they weren't looking at Olave, they weren't looking at Jameson Williams, they weren't, worried about Hamilton from Notre Dame. So
yeah.
I think they had their guys in mind who they wanted, and the first one went. So they said, well, we can go back a few slots because, like Swaggy said earlier, Jahan was slated to go late first, early second, and that was the guy. That was the guy they targeted. He does everything that they want him to do, because I think that's the thing people don't. They get caught up in the names, the sexy names, the big names, and they get caught up in who they know and from the big teams. And not saying Penn State isn't a big team, but the specific teams know exactly what they're looking for, and they needed a receiver that could do more than just take the top off the defense. Jameson Williamson is excellent at that, but they needed a receiver that can do more, and Jahan is a guy that can play inside, outside, has speed, has the hands, has the catch radius. Why wouldn't you want a guy like that? You need a guy like that.
Yeah.
You have a Curtis Samuel that can play in the slot. Curtis Samuel's fast. Jahan is fast. So you have, the Diami is fast.
Zach's not wrong. They got weapons.
Yeah, people keep forgetting about him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's going into his second year as well. So, I'm more than, I like to wait to see what players do on the field. I don't get caught up in the names. I mean, Cam Curl's a 7th round pick, and he's our best safety, and he's pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get caught up in the names. I like to see what players do once they put the pads and the helmet on and they go out there and flying around, and then we'll see who shakes out. I mean, I went back and looked at the draft Terry McLaurin was in, and obviously he was the 3rd round. But all those receivers that's getting that big money or getting traded went in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
Like, these weren't 1st round picks. Like, we don't talk about them 2 1st round receivers because they weren't as good as the ones that came after them. So I leave it up to the teams, to tell me how talented they are at drafting and observing and recognizing talent. I like Jahan. I like what I've seen and heard about him. I like Percy. As soon as they said purest free safety in the draft, and then I went and read the scouting report on the safety that went after Mathis. I cannot remember his name, but he was
Brisker, right? The kid from
Brisker.
Yeah,
he was a box safety. They say he plays better in the box. They can put Cam Curl in the box.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So. Yep. I read those things. I don't get caught up in the name. So, I'm not mad. I mean, of course, we're going to always compare Jahan to how's Hamilton playing, how's Jameson
or an Olave.
How's Olave playing? We're going to always compare him to those players. But as long as he do what he need to do, for the Commanders and their system, then it doesn't matter how them other players are.
I think if London had made it there, they'd have taken him. Apparently, they had London super high up the board. And then had guys like Olave and Dotson just kind of in that same range. It's interesting. Somebody was talking about this. 70 carries for Patterson last year, 250 carries for Gibson last year. I think they plan on having a role where Brian Robinson gets 100 carries next year.
Oh, he's getting them.
Yes.
He's getting them. The less.
Now, I would have preferred Zamir White in the 4th round. But, I mean, it's the same player, and I'm not mad at it because he's going to get work.
Listen, you trust – or teams trust Nick Saban coached players.
Yes, they do.
They trust
Yes, they do.
his players, and
It's an NFL philosophy. So he's
Exactly.
pretty much, he has them in the NFL system in college. So when they get to the NFL, it's an easy transition on both sides of the ball.
exactly. And the key, once again, I read certain things. He doesn't fumble. That's
Not
all
one.
soon as I saw that, I said, and that's why he's now a Commander. He does not fumble, and he's going to be getting the ball in situations where they need that tough 2, they need that tough 1. That's when he's going to be in there. So you need a guy who don't put the ball on the ground, and they got one.
Maybe even in a 3rd and 4th situation when
you can
pass the ball and then boom.
Right.
You could tell Ron was pissed that they couldn't get the 3rd and 1s and 4th and 1s last year and went out and got a sledgehammer.
We always go try and do some play action, and then the defensive end see it, smack our quarterback, and then we get an incomplete pass.
The other thing I think interesting, and when I talked to Logan Paulson on Friday, he mentioned all the time about the fit that they wanted. Ron keeps talking about fit. Swag, I'm curious your thoughts. That seems like what happened with Ioannidis and Settle. Good players, but I don't think they fit kind of what Ron was looking for. Apparently Mathis, is not a joke around, play around type guy. How important is fit when it comes to putting these teams together?
Well, everyone has their different systems. Personally for me, I fit well when it was a 3-4 system in Washington. That was my forte. I could play in, I could play nose, I could play 3-2, I could play anywhere on the defensive line. But then some guys can go to a 4-3 and not fit in that system because the 4-3 guys, you kind of want like a penetrating defensive tackle and a really stout nose. And I believe Matt Ioannidis was more of a 3 technique, but better suited for a 3-4 3 technique. A guy that has to hold blockers off and that he can make plays when he can make plays, but he's not really one that you ask to get upfield and be disruptive like a Aaron Donald or something. That's what you want in your typical 3 techniques, the Gerald McCoys of the world, the guys who get up there and just really create havoc. And that wasn't Matt's forte. He was good at pass rushing on nickel downs, pushing the pocket, and running games with the defensive ends and coming through free on stunts and stuff. But to ask him to do something like a Jared Allen or Aaron Donald, Fletcher Cox, like those are guys you look for as 3 techniques in a 4-3. So sometimes guys can't really transition to that, but they're really good in 3-4. And that's how I was. Like I felt like in my career in Washington, I did really well playing in the 3-4 system, whether it was playing nose or moving out to the 3 technique or moving out to a 5. I was able to penetrate. I could hold the 5 down on the run, and I could pass rush from the 5 technique or the 3 technique or the 1 or the 0. So I think that's the versatility that we were looking for, and hopefully that's what we got in our Alabama pick.
Was anybody surprised Washington didn't draft a linebacker?
No, I didn't think that. I mean, even though we always say that we need a linebacker because our first round draft pick didn't work, probably like 60% of the snaps are going to be played in nickel anyway, and that number may be even higher than that. So you really only going to play most of the game with 2 linebackers, so that guy has to be able to cover. And then you can get away with putting a safety down there at linebacker because more than likely maybe in 11 personnel you're going to expect them to pass the ball. So I think getting a linebacker wasn't so much of it as a big need as everyone thinks because you're rarely playing with base linebackers in today's NFL.
And I still think they have hopes, although he didn't show me much last year when he had his chance, but I know they still like Khaleke Hudson in that will linebacker, maybe even gets into that Buffalo nickel sometime. So no surprise. And they picked up a bunch of undrafted free agents. I know they got a couple in the linebacker department, maybe even one from Notre Dame.
That's
Drew
where
White.
the best players are picked in the eighth round.
In the 8th round?
I just got into it on Twitter. I forgot whose Twitter message I responded to, but he was like, "Oh, here comes the messages from all the 8th round draft picks that said they slept on." I was like, "F you," because I was definitely about to tweet it like, "Hey, this is where all the good picks get picked up at on draft time."
Swaggy, what were you doing on draft weekend?
this week or like?
No, when you got drafted.
Oh man, it was crazy, bro. Because when I left Hampton, I thought I was going to get picked early in the draft. I thought
What was your agent telling you? Was your agent telling you like what round? How does that work?
Top 3. I would go anywhere in the top 3 rounds. And
that's what you thought. The agent was saying that.
My agent was saying that. Yeah, but my agent was saying you should. He didn't see me really going past the 3rd, 4th round. And I was hoping for the best in getting in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd round, just because I had great numbers coming out of Hampton, had good numbers at Penn State. I had a really good combine. And when I went undrafted, it was such a shock, bro. Like, we had a big draft party at my house because I was expecting to get drafted. And then my best friend, Terrence Knight, and he wound up getting drafted before me. But throughout the draft process, I was probably rated higher defensive tackle when you looked at all the mock drafts and all that type of stuff. I was rated higher than Terrence. Then when I saw him get drafted before me in the 3rd round, I was like, oh, John, I don't know what's going on. He got drafted before me. What's about to happen? And then round after round just went by, and I never got picked, and it was like so depressing. I remember walking out the house. I had a whole party at my house, and I just walked out just crying because I was like, bro, like I left college early. I was supposed to be a top draft pick. Now I'm not drafted and didn't even graduate from college. Like, what am I supposed to do now? And I remember walking down the street crying and my dad holding me and just saying, son, God's going to work everything out. Just not what you thought it was going to be, but as long as you get a chance, you'll be okay. And as soon as the draft was over, I got 3 phone calls, I believe, from the Panthers, the Steelers, and the Broncos. And the Broncos added a little bit more of a signing bonus than any of the other teams, and they didn't really have a solidified D-line. So that's why I was kind of happy once I didn't get picked early that I went undrafted, because now I could pick what destination kind of best fits my skill set. And so I was able to pick the Denver Broncos, and at the time they had their defensive line they didn't have any like solid guys. They had Ron Fields, who was a defensive tackle from San Fran, played with our defensive coordinator, Mike Nolan. They brought him over. They had Ryan McBean, Vonnie Holiday. Who else did we have? We had a bunch of guys, but none of them were like Casey Hampton or something that was solidified. Everybody was pretty much competing for their position. And I remember my first year in camp, because they were all veterans, and they were all pretty much starting for probably like the first time in their careers. We fought each other on the defensive line more than we fought each other. We fought against the offensive line because guys were just, hey, this is my position, this is my time to shine type of thing. So it was kind of weird for me to really see like the guys within the same room fight each other more than we was fighting the offensive line. But that's how competitive guys were. And guys really wanted to show that they could be a starter in the NFL. So that's kind of like the situation I walked into, and I was able to make the team as an undrafted free agent, and I stayed on the team all year. So that was a pretty good accomplishment, considering that I started camp at like the 4th or 15th defensive tackle, and by the second week in camp, I was pretty much second team on nickel, big nickel, base, and first team goal line as an undrafted free agent. So
if they had the NIL deal back then, it makes it easier to stay another year, or you think you'd still bounce? Like I could see like down in Hampton there'd be a bunch of opportunities to make some cash.
I don't think the cash was a factor in me leaving or staying. I tell people all the time, it's such a big difference between the facility makeup and just the quality of service that you get when you go to like a Penn State and then go to a Hampton. It was so much different. I was used to things being run a certain way, and I was the type of kid where, like, if you let me get away with something or not doing it, I would not do it, But at Penn State, I didn't have that option. If we had running, I had to run, no matter if I had a turf toe injury or my back was hurting, you couldn't get out of it. And I found out when I was at Hampton, they kind of allowed you kind of just to do whatever you want. And I was like, if I stay another year, I'll probably gain like 20 pounds and get out of shape and not be what I know I'm capable of being. So I was like, I think it's my time to leave. And so once I got into the league, I was like, as long as I get a shot, I'll be okay because I know I can play. And it kind of worked itself out for me.
Pooh, how have you switch gears real quick? How have you found the NBA playoffs so far? Memphis is your new favorite team, right? Didn't you?
Yeah.
That's you give up on the Wizards and move to.
I didn't give up on the Wizards. They're just that's my Eastern Conference team. Memphis is my Western Conference team.
Nice.
I probably watch a little bit more now. We're in the second round. I kind of, was just skipping to fourth quarters in the first round. I like entertaining series. The Minnesota-Memphis series was entertaining. I think the Memphis-Golden State series will be entertaining. I mean,
how good is Golden State? It's unfair.
I think Golden State's going to sweep them.
I don't know if they're going to sweep them. It might be a gentleman's sweep, but I don't think they're going to sweep them.
Memphis gave them their best shot and lost with every chance to win the game. Clay, like, who would have ever thought Klay Thompson would have missed 2 free throws at the end of the game? Like, that is, I would have took if I was playing 2K, I would have broke my controller if I missed 2 freaking free throws with Klay Thompson. That just doesn't happen.
Now you're right in the respect. It doesn't look good for Memphis when you have Draymond was ejected in the second quarter. Clay and Steph had bad first halves and foul trouble, and then you had Jordan Poole just playing like Jordan Poole's been playing in the playoffs.
So 33.
Yeah, something.
Why can't the Wizards draft a Jordan Poole? Why?
The Wizards don't have a patience. They don't have a patience to develop a Jordan Poole. That's the problem. Because they drafted Jordan Clarkson and then traded him immediately, and he was 6th man of the year last year. So when you don't have the patience or the organization to develop players like a Jordan Poole, you don't end up with Jordan Pooles. But yeah, I mean the playoffs. I like the playoffs. I think I watched the Celtics and Bucks. That was interesting to see the Celtics. They was just more physical than the Nets, and they were just pushing Durant around the court. You're not doing that to the Bucks. You're not doing that to Giannis. Like, they are the bullies. So,
I'm interested to see how they're going to do without what's the name that got injured?
For Minnesota, for Milwaukee.
Yeah.
The guard.
Middleton.
No, the forward that's out for the whole series.
Middleton,
yeah, he's out for the whole. And
that's a
big part.
I think yesterday they showed that how they're going to play without him. Right. And it may not work every game, but they're just going to play bully ball. And Giannis turned into a distributor yesterday. And Connaughton, Allen, Wesley Matthews, they just stand out, shoot threes. But the key is going to be Drew Holiday. He's going to have to play the whole series like he played yesterday. And, the defense is a given, but he's going to have to make shots. And he made shots yesterday. He had 20-something points. So that's probably going to be crucial for them. And then one of them other players is going to have a big game, one of them games. They're going to have to go crazy. Grayson Allen going to have to hit like 5 threes or something, or Pat Connaughton. But I think this is going to be a good series. I think it's going 7. It's definitely going 7. Yeah. And the Celtics going to have to make another adjustment because they came in. You could see it. They tried to guard Giannis the same way they guarded KD.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work because I saw him lining up and I was like, that's how they was guarding KD. Not the same player. Giannis doesn't care how many people's there. He's going to the lane with them 2 big steps. And he's putting the ball in the rim. So
I hate his game, yo. I swear, yo.
So does James Harden. He has no bag.
Oh my God, bro! It's like anytime you see like a big power forward, you expect to get that skill set like a Kevin Durant. And Giannis is just not that. He's a really good penetrator, can dunk on everybody, can do spin moves and get to a hole all the time. But he's not going to step back and knock down threes or cross you up and do a nice jump shot like a Kevin Durant. And that's hard to see because it's like, bro, all he does is dunk on people. Is he really that good, or is he just more? He
reminds me of like a 6'10" Scottie Pippen.
Right.
He's got those long strides. It only takes 2 to get through the entire 3-point area to the hoop.
Bro, I saw this one time. He took a fast break with like 2 dribbles from half court and dunked the ball on the whole team with a Euro step. I was like, this is crazy.
Giannis reminds me of like one of them NFL offenses where you know what they're going to run, you know exactly what they're going to do, but you still can't stop it.
Right.
You never can stop it.
And he's like a triple-double machine. He's getting 20 points, 12 assists.
That's the crazy thing is he gets better every year. That's the amazing thing to me. What about any chance with Embiid out for at least 2 games?
I don't know, bro. I just
Miami?
don't see James Harden being that guy, bro.
Nah.
Yeah, for 2 games, I mean, maybe 1 game, but 2 sounds like a tough ask.
I think
at least 2. It sounds like
if Philly's going to get any game without Embiid out, it has to be tonight. It has to be tonight. They have to because this is going to be the only game, if there is a game, where Miami comes in with their guard down because Embiid is not playing. And that's typically not a Miami thing to do, is to come in with their guard down. But this will be the game. If they don't get this game, it's lights out.
Is Jimmy back in the lineup?
Jimmy is back in the lineup.
Oh yeah, I don't think Miami.
Kyle Lowry is out, but Jimmy's back.
Man, and I had forgotten that Oladipo was down there too, right? I forget who they kind of collected down there in Miami.
Yeah, Oladipo. He's been on the bench the whole season, rehabbing, and then all of a sudden the playoffs, you pull the warm-ups off. Like what?
Bro, they got a Pat Riley ran organization. Those guys are not going to come in sleep and come playoff. Those guys are ready to go.
And Spoelstra doesn't get nearly enough credit that he deserves, because what's he been coaching the team for like 20 years now?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to say, "Oh, he's great because he had LeBron," but he's a really good coach.
Very good coach.
His defensive strategies, it's just unbelievable. The way he's able to stop other guys, key players. When you look at their end of game execution, is always on point. These guys are almost like the Patriots in the sense of they have really good situational ball skills.
Yeah. Let's wrap like this. Let's go full circle. Tell me your final thoughts of the draft this year. Pooh, let's start with you.
Washington's draft or the draft?
Yeah. Well, we can whatever. But
I got you.
Frankly, the Giants and the Eagles got really good this weekend, which made me sad.
The Cowboys didn't, so I was excited about that. I mean, for the Commanders, I still hate that name, but for Washington, I think it was an understated draft. But when you listen to Ron and Martin talk, they got what they wanted, and all you can do is say, okay, well, you say you got what you wanted. Let me see it in action. And that's all I'm waiting for. I like the players that they got. I think, the players, Jahan and Mathis and Robinson Jr. and Percy Butler specifically, I think those 4 have a chance to contribute right away. And, we're going to see them on the field. So I'm not – it's just it wasn't a sexy draft, so this probably turns out to be one of their best drafts because it wasn't sexy.
Absolutely.
It was like, I love it. Yeah. So, like I said –
and Sam Howell in the 5th round. I mean, people thought he was the first rounder at some point.
I mean, that's who they wanted all along. That was the quarterback of their choice, I'll say, all along, Sam Howell. So they ended up getting the guy that they wanted in the 5th round, and, he'll be there to develop. And they at least have him for a season or 2 to not have to worry about thrusting him into the lineup. So, it's gonna be intriguing watching this team through the summer, through camp, when the preseason, when the season start, just to see how they plug these guys in. And because the thing I do know, Washington had a lot of key injuries last season, and if those guys return healthy, their team is already better.
Yep.
With a quarterback with a liver arm, or a better quarterback, and healthy players. Their team was already better before the draft. So, I'm not excited, but I'm not down on the draft. It's a wait and see thing. It's just, okay, you got the guys you wanted. Now let's see what you do with them.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of share the same thing as Pooh, man. This was an interesting draft. I felt like we got better as a team, and I'm glad that we didn't just go out there and take the sexy pick at what was the first one at 12 or 11, and we traded back and we got our guy. Our guy may be different from what the fans may like, but when a guy fits your system, you pick that guy. And at the end of the day, there's nothing left to do but just go out there and show how these guys fit into the system. Everyone wants to see, our sexy new wide receivers and how our quarterback is going to blend in with the wide receivers and the tight ends that we have. So you try to put the quarterback in a great situation and give him as many weapons as possible. And I think we did a good job at that, addressing the need for another key wide receiver and another good running back. So now we got a three-headed monster at running back, and hopefully we could just get it back to the good old days and run the ball all game and not have to put too much pressure on the quarterback. And then we would just have to see what happens on our defense. Even though we added a good safety, how is our star defensive ends going to play this year? Because last year was such a letdown with Chase Young and Sweat. How do they come back from the injuries and the offseason? How do they respond this year? That would be a major impact on the team. Because when those guys are rolling and on the same page, we're a hard defense to get through. But if we go out and do the same thing we did last year and everyone's sack chasing and not on the same page, we're going to get gashed up, ran through, and then we're going to be like, hey, none of these draft picks that we picked worked out. So hopefully we come out with a good game plan offensively, defensively, and special teams. And hopefully the guys that we pick can fit in the draft. And you'll be able to see that right when camp starts. A lot of guys look really good in OTAs and mini camp with no pads on. And then you see come August, when you put those pads on, someone who really wasn't getting the opportunity to go out there and start thumping and knocking people out, you're like, oh, shoot, we got to play this guy. So we'll definitely see when camp starts, and we'll see how guys are being used in camp and in the preseason. And hopefully those guys go out there and perform the way we all feel that they can perform.
And don't sleep on that tight end from Nevada either.
I
forgot about him.
Wide receiver turned tight end Cole, right?
Yeah.
Now it was obvious they made their big splash with Carson Wentz, and they drafted knowing that this was a big splash, and they expected to work. Like they got Carson to win 10 games. You know,
that was the only thing they could do. They could not go out and get a key free agent quarterback. No one is coming to Washington.
That's what I mean. They proved it. Absolutely,
no one is coming to Washington as a free agent. Like.
And you couldn't go Heineke out there again for another year.
No,
you just could not do that.
No.
And so they drafted guys that are going to produce and at least get on the field and be productive right away. You could tell that was the plan.
Like I would have loved for us to be able to go after a guy like Tyrann Mathieu, who's still out there and available. And I'm hearing that he may go home to the Saints now.
He did,
but we're not even.
That happened earlier today.
Oh, it did. It did happen.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But I would have loved to have been in the sweepstakes to get a guy like that. But like I told you before, like signing a key free agent is not in Washington's future. So we have to get good draft picks and develop our young players so that we can sign them and not have to worry about outside free agents until we get everything situated with the team.
Absolutely.
All right, fellas. Another Monday in the books. We'll
yes, sir.
We'll see you next week.
All right, guys.
Y'all have a good one.
All right.